Our first speaker is Hyung Kim, who's currently a sophomore here. She's majoring in political science and Spanish. She's originally from Korea. She's now a naturalized citizen. As you can see from her bio, we're not going to take a long time to do the bios. You can read them, but she has immersed herself in the McDaniel experience, taking advantage of what we have to offer here, but has also given us so much in return. And please come up and...
My name is Hyung Kim, and I'll be graduating from McDaniel College in 2013. Just about 1.5 years ago, I was a little scared freshman girl who did not know what to do with my life. I did not even know what the liberal arts meant. My mom asked me, "Are you going to major in arts?" I'm like, "No, Mom." I chose McDaniel School because the moment I walked on the campus, I felt very welcomed and at home. And I really loved it. And like my expectation, all the professors and the friends whom I came into contact with were very, very nice, especially Dr. Leahy, who is my advisor, professor, colleague, and a future lifelong friend. I remember walking into her office and telling her how depressed I was that my own father, who brought me all the way from Korea for my success in education, was opposed of me studying political science. Not only he believed that my ethnicity, gender, and social status would prevent me from prospering in political science field, but he also told me to go all the way back to Korea if I were to study political science. Well, not that he pays for my tuition. But, however, Dr. Leahy, she encouraged me, but also presented me with lots of opportunities, as if she was my mother on this campus. I took her advice and never gave up. Her political science classes inspired me greatly, and her teaching was enthusiastic. She made me fall in love with political science even more. And because I fell in love with it, I tried harder to pursue my dad. My continuous try led me to be elected as the senator of the SGA in freshman year and the treasurer of the SGA the following year. And these results led me to be selected to intern at the Department of Commerce in Washington, D.C. last summer. And gradually, I saw a smile on my father's face. Not that he pays for my tuition. Dr. Mary, whom I would also want to thank, worked so hard to keep up with me to improve my writing skills. And I'm pretty sure she wanted to close her eyes and burn my paper the first time she read my writings. It was pretty disastrous. I apologize for that. Instead, she kept a big smile on her face and told me that I'm doing a great job, and she personally sat down with me and worked with me. That moment, I could feel such sincerity from her. I began to take more of her classes, such as American literature and African American literature, which are very interesting, and I recommend everybody to take it. I sometimes sit in my room and think about what it would have been like if I did not choose to come to McDaniel. Well, I don't think about it because I love McDaniel College. Liberal arts exposed me to so many different things. I'm sitting in a class that I would never thought of taking, such as creative rhythm and dance and hapkido. Also sitting in a classroom with people who are from so many different places and who have so many different personalities and majors are quite interesting. I was always raised in a very conservative Christian family, but I was sitting in a classroom with very liberal democratic students. And I made a lifelong best friend whose name is Isis Tabrizi, who's from Palestine and from a Muslim background, who knew that was going to happen in my life. Talking with her is very enjoyable. She exposed me to different culture and the world. And because of the conversation that I had with her and her concerns for the Palestine and Israeli conflict, I began to take classes such as the politics in the Middle East and the Arab world. And from these classes, I came to conclusions that tolerance comes when people try to understand each other, and the violence comes when people shut their ears and eyes. And I have to admit that being in a liberal arts education, it opened my eyes and ears. And I thank her for that. I love learning from each other and from professors who are so intriguing. Liberal arts education is very important to me because it means changing lives. As I continue to pursue my education in liberal arts, I will expand my knowledge for this world. And I know when I get out of the real world, I'll be ready. Thank you, McDaniel.
Thank you, Hyung. That was wonderful. Our next guest is Dr. Peter Bradley, who is a member of the philosophy department at McDaniel. He's been involved in numerous projects and courses that focus on the liberal arts. And one example of this is his newly designed honors course called Why Be Educated. And he's going to come now and speak to us about his experiences in the liberal arts, or maybe that bike accident that is causing him to wear a sling on his arm. I'm not sure, one of the two. Peter?
Yes, as Sarah said, I'm Peter Bradley. I teach in the philosophy department here. I'm actually the only member of this panel who didn't go here. So my experience is a little different, and I'm going to try to explain what that was about. My first job after college was webmaster. It didn't exist when I started college. It didn't exist until about my third year of college. Within 6 months of finishing my coursework and a week after my actual graduation from Antioch, I was heading up a system administration department for an internet service provider in Portland, Oregon. Now, I grant that these were the heady early days of the dot-com boom, and the economy was very different back then. But the basic principles of innovation and entrepreneurship that I experienced remain true today. Many of us in that first generation of dot-commers were liberal arts graduates. We were the ones who took the simple text-based protocol of the web and extended it into the highly interactive and dynamic experience that you can see today. The inventors envisioned only a simple text transfer protocol. That's all the web was. We liberal arts students were the ones who changed it. In retrospect, it's probably easy to see why so many of us came from liberal arts colleges. Creating and running a website back in those days took a wide variety of skills that are not normally correlated. One needed to hack code, swashbuckle Unix, talk grumpy Pac Bell engineers into doing what you wanted them to do, handle irate customers when the email systems went down, sell product and services, write clearly and succinctly, and most importantly, have a sense of style. I started out as a physics philosophy double major at Antioch College. I graduated as a philosophy and religion major. So how did I end up as a Unix sysop in the dot-com bubble? That's a good question. Antioch has a long-standing commitment to experiential learning, both while on campus and during our many internships, which we call cooperative education or co-ops. As a first-year student, I landed a work-study job as a computer lab monitor, and through that position got to know the director of IT, who was a former reporter and PR officer. At the tail end of my second year, spring 1994, he collected all of us lab monitors in the basement of the basement office of the science building to unpack our Sun SPARC 10 and figure out how to set up the Ethernet protocol called TCP/IP. As the newbie of the group, I wasn't able to claim lane to the sexy, high-profile protocols like Network News, INN, File Transfer Protocol, FTP, or Gopher, Archie, and Veronica. I'm sure none of you remember those, but they were big in 1994. At the bottom of the list where I was a new protocol dismissively characterized as text with pretty pictures, called Hypertext Transfer Protocol, or HTTP. That was what the web was in 1994. It was the leftovers. It was the stuff the engineers didn't want to do. So I started building Antioch's first website, a version of its viewbook. That fall in 1994, when a small company called Netscape released the beta version of its web browser, again, some of you will remember that, I had a co-op with that same IT manager. During that time, I set up Antioch's site to take advantage of the new interlaced graphics format and organized the first student-run internet site, not just at Antioch, but in the world. You can look it up. It's on archive.org. The next year, a small group of us philosophy majors drafted our math professor to lead an independent study of logic. She agreed to do so on the condition that her husband, an MIT-trained computer scientist, could supervise. At the end of the term, he offered me a co-op working for the defense contractor called SAIC, as they explored ways to adapt their expertise with MILNET to the public civilian technology of the World Wide Web. That was the summer of 1995, when Netscape went public. We weren't successful in our efforts, but I gained a great deal of hands-on experience developing commercial websites. I finished my schoolwork that December and headed out west to catch my bit of the dot-com bubble. As much as this may sound, this is not a story of rugged individualism. It's a story of a community of engaged, active learners and a culture of intellectual responsibility. It's the story of a liberal education. These jobs didn't exist when I graduated high school. The web was in its infancy on a handful of servers with names like InfoCern and NCSA, which is the National Center for Supercomputing Applications. It was literally what my fellow techies had described, a way of downloading text documents with pretty pictures. While there's no question that browser technology has changed since Netscape 0.98 beta, the protocol itself is essentially unchanged. All the interactive, dynamic experiences available online today are built on top of that text with pretty pictures that my technologically trained friends found distracting and unnecessary. I learned basic internet technology as part of my work study. I was on the cutting edge of web development because the college encouraged experiential learning throughout the community and allowed me the responsibilities of starting the website. I got my co-op job and well-needed experience working with a computer guru because I performed well in the logic class. I excelled as a sysadmin because I could write clearly, articulate ideas, diagnose problems, and plan courses of action, all classic skills of a philosophy and religious studies major. I did well in the entrepreneurial climate of the dot-coms because I could talk to CEOs, the marketing staff, and the engineers. The intellectual training I experienced in the classroom was complemented and cultivated by these practical experiences, developing what Aristotle might have called the intellectual virtue of practical wisdom, the capacity to apply reason to direct action. The virtue of practical wisdom, like any other moral or intellectual virtue, cannot be developed without practice, without experience. Elgo Henderson, one of the youngest college presidents in the history of American liberal arts colleges, yes, even younger than Dr. Casey, wrote on the passion for learning, how can the spark of action be ignited? How can the student be given a consuming desire to achieve good? There is not any one or simple answer. In part, the answer lies in creating an interesting, actively stimulating, and sometimes shocking environment aimed at inducing educational change in the individual. In my experience, that rich, challenging environment was key to liberal education. My decision to leave the dot-com bubble and devote my life to liberal education was remarkably easy. It happened, almost without my volition, in Tokyo. At the time, I was working for a chip manufacturer called LSI Logic, bringing a chip fab plant outside Portland online that would make the main chips in the Sony PlayStation 2. My job, along with 4 others, was to make sure that the 50 or so mega servers that ran the plant's robots did not stop functioning, even for a moment. I was building the monitoring system that would alert us via pager and cell phone, big technologies in 1995, regardless of the time of day, if anything started going haywire. We had been told that the plant lost $1 million an hour when it wasn't working. Our annual salaries amounted to 3 to 5 minutes of response time. It was, shall I say, an intense environment. The company decided to send me to Japan to train the staff there on the same monitoring system I had installed in Portland. So after a week of jet lag and Unix hacking, I walk into the Tokyo headquarters of LSI and see this huge plaque from the huge plaque on the wall behind the receptionist from Sony that said, "Congratulations to LSI Logic on the manufacture of the 30 millionth Sony PlayStation." I stood there at 24, developing ulcers, with no sleep in a week and a pager that I could not turn off, and thought, that's as many PlayStations as the entire population of South Africa. Horace Mann, educational reformer and Antioch's first president, commanded his first graduating class to be ashamed to die until you have won some victory for humanity. I know it's a weird quote, but we have to say it all the time. At that moment in Tokyo, I thought to myself, is the world a better, kinder, more just place because I've helped 30 million people distract themselves for a short period of time? That's when I decided to return to a liberal arts college and teach philosophy. If there is a lesson here, it's this. People ought not be created to fit jobs. Jobs are created to fit people. The jobs are not created by people who see only the way the world is. They are created by people who can see the way the world ought to be. Think back to the stereotypical work environment of the internet boom. It was structured to suit our needs, not the needs of the generation who believe the web to just be text with pretty pictures. The same will be true again. The work world will be what the next generation makes of it, not what we want. The world has never been changed by people who merely accept the status quo and find a place within it. The world is changed by people who see the way the world could be, should be, or ought to be. And that is what liberal education gave me. It was, in W.E.B. Du Bois's excellent phrase, education for aspiration. Changing lives for a changing world. It's the banner in front of me. That is actually the story of my experience with liberal education. And I hope that it can be the story of our future liberally educated generations here at McDaniel. Thank you.
One of the great things about having faculty give speeches, you learn all kinds of things about them you didn't know before. So, thank you, Peter. Our last guest to speak to us tonight, Dr. Joan Bailey Wilson and Alexander Wilson, as you'll see, known as the Gene Team or Dynamic Duo. Probably wish they hadn't put that in there. Is that what yeah, the Batmobile's outside. But our McDaniel alumni who have had an enormously successful career in medical genetics and are currently co-chiefs of the Inherited Disease Research Branch of NIH's National Human Genome Research Institute. I could take the entire time that we've allotted them to talk about all their accomplishments, but I think what they have to say is very important, and so we'll take time for that. Please join.
Well, I must say we love those examples from the last speaker because we remember all those things.
Yeah, but do you remember punched cards? And
Yeah,
and
see, we
paper
got you
tape?
beat
Got
there.
you beat. Well, we got a call a couple months ago from Mary Lynn Durham, and she said, we'd like you to come and talk at Dr. Casey's one of Dr. Casey's inauguration events. And she said it's going to be about the liberal arts and sciences, and you have 15 minutes and you can do anything you want. And it's always a problem when you give somebody who's like us, okay, like a full professor type, an open mic, okay, and time. All right, so the first question came down, do we try to be the good professor or the truly great professor? You know the difference? A good professor can take 3 hours worth of information and collapse it down into one 50-minute lecture. A truly great professor can take 15 minutes of information and expand it, okay, to 50 minutes. Am I right, faculty? Yes, okay, thank you. So we decided we would try and be just really good professors tonight, not truly good, because we only have 15 minutes. Our title was Liberal Arts and Sciences, a Conversation. And the more I thought about it, the more confused I got, really. And I wasn't sure whether it meant the liberal arts and sciences, because nobody ever talks about the liberal sciences. Okay, they talk about the liberal arts or liberal arts education, and sometimes they talk about liberal arts and sciences. So I started to wonder, is this liberal arts and science? Okay, or is it liberal arts and science? Okay, or is it liberal arts versus science? Okay, and to be honest, that's where, coming from a science background, we see a lot of liberal arts versus science. So there are a couple of themes that we want to talk about, okay, that's one. The other is the changing world, okay, and one of my favorite places is Disney World in Orlando. You go to Hollywood Studios and
We've taken our kids there many times.
It's the Muppet 3D thing, and you go in and there's a big poster, you're standing in line and it's August and it's 100 degrees and 100% humidity, and there's a poster there and it says Muppet Labs, okay, Muppets, okay, there's a picture of Bunsen Honeydew with his Harvard bow tie on. Okay, and then there's Beaker, and it says Muppet Labs, where the future is tomorrow. Okay, and it was supposed to be funny, but when you think about it, it really is true, and it's much more true now, okay, than it was when we graduated from here. There are paradigm-changing shifts that are occurring all the time. Okay, they're much more frequently now than they were 30 years ago, and we'll touch on that as we go. So, who are we really, and what did we do when we were here? So this is what people really want to know, because we really are married, okay?
That's true. So we got here in 1971, and then we graduated in 1975. So as my students all say to me, Joan, you're really old. I go, yes, I'm really old. So we get that out of the way. Yes, we're really old. And we were both biology majors, although perhaps not the typical biology majors. Now you have to understand, his hair was down to here when I met him.
Well,
we were...
And out to here, too.
We were the typical long-haired 1970s hippies. My hair was down to here at that point. And while we were both biology majors, we also had, as is typical in a liberal arts college, and part of why we came to liberal arts colleges, we had other interests. So I was very interested in drama, was involved in a lot of the dramatic productions. I was never a star, I was always had a little part, but I had great fun. He was very involved with the English department, wrote a lot of poetry. So we both really took advantage of what is the strength of a liberal arts college, that you can have your first love, your first passion, which for both of us was science, but you don't have to be a one-dimensional person. It's your turn.
And people say, well, how did you meet? Okay, I mean, everybody wants to know, how did you meet? I swear, I did not remember seeing her before senior year. Okay?
I didn't see him before
Okay,
senior
because
year.
I was on a different track. I started out as a chemistry major. I was a chemistry major for 2.5 minutes into freshman count. Okay? And I decided at that point that I had made a terrible decision. And at that point, I went and I wanted to change my major. So I was about a year behind in the bio track until we caught up to senior year. But I was coming out of the grill, the old grill, which was now down. It's below Lewis Hall now. So now it's psychology or something now? Campus safety. Okay, so that's where we went, for food and stuff. And Joan was coming down the steps with my girlfriend at the time. And she was in the process of dumping me, actually. And there was a deal going on, apparently, and I was involved in a trade.
No. That's not true. But he was cute. And she did dump him shortly thereafter. She didn't actually dump him. She decided she was transferring, and therefore they had no future. And I said, good for me. So I then tried to get this guy to notice me. It was very difficult, but we were in evolution together. Senior year, evolution, Dr. Royer, you may see her pictures on the wall. And I used to sit in the back, and he used to sit in the front. So I'd always come in the back. Well, then I said, maybe if I walk in the front, he'll notice me. So, those girl things, you walk in the front, you wear perfume.
She's wearing perfume. No, she walked right by me. So anyway.
And then I borrowed his calculator. Finally, he gets the message,
She borrowed my calculator, didn't give it back, and so I had to go.
Good strategy.
I had to go down and get it. They were living down in the apartments down the hill, and I had to go get the calculator. What can I say? And then it turns out we had a common advisor, Jean Kirshner. And senior year, she was Joan's advisor for her honors project and my advisor for my honors project, and we were both applying to graduate schools. And she said to me, there's this girl that's applying to graduate school. You really should get together and compare notes.
And said to me, there's this boy that's applying to genetics graduate school. You ought to talk. Well, one thing led to another.
And so we ended up applying to graduate schools together. We decided to go to graduate school together. When we went to IU, after we graduated, one thing led to another. We were married in Little Baker Chapel in 1978 by Dean Zepp.
Got our PhDs in medical genetics from Indiana University's Medical Center in Indianapolis with minors in biomathematics. And this was, again, where sort of coming from a liberal arts background helped us, because we had no more math than the average bio major. We'd gone through calculus, we'd had one stat class, but we weren't afraid of branching out. So when we got to graduate school, and the parts of genetics that actually each of us found the most fascinating was in the mathematical end of genetics, we weren't afraid to go over to the Purdue Extension campus, sit in with all the engineers, and take the math we needed to then do statistical genetics. And so, that sort of idea that you can go across multiple fields gave us the ability, I think, in graduate school to do that, to say we can cross different fields. Your turn.
So we went then to LSU, where we went from, research associates to assistant professors to full professors. And by 1995, we were then recruited to come back to Maryland, and we were recruited to come to NIH. And at the time, I think we had 4 sets of job offers for the two of us, because we're a 3-career couple. There's my career, there's Joan's career, and then there's our career, which involves 2 kids. So it's difficult, when you try and manage that. But we did get a wonderful offer from NIH, and we took the opportunity to come back. So you really can go home again. Okay?
It made the grandparents very happy. So an important thing is, and you've heard this theme from other people. You heard it on the video, you've heard it from Dr. Bradley, and that is that things change. What your major was is not necessarily what you're going to be doing 20 years from now, or what you were learning in college is going to have changed later. So the state of the art of genetics in 1975, when we graduated from here, was, if that was the only thing we had was the facts we learned then, well, we would have known about microscopy. We got to go to a wonderful laboratory from a wonderful alumnus,
Dr. George Thomas.
Dr. Thomas.
We went on a field trip with Dr. Kirshner in 1974-75 to see his lab, and he was printing out giant chromosomes. It was really cool stuff.
And it really, that Jan term course really did affect both of us to decide to go into genetics. But at the time, the things that were hot in genetics were microscopy, they were biochemistry, lab techniques, and some very simple basic population genetics. If we were just going to take the facts we learned here and go with that, and that was all, we wouldn't be where we are today. Science has changed, genetics has changed, and so the new stuff and being able to learn the new stuff is important.
So what do we do? We're both actually co-chiefs, senior investigators at the National Human Genome Research Institute. This is roughly the equivalent of a named professorship. We have about, between the two of us, 15 master's postdoctoral fellows, students, pre-docs. We have a budget of about $2.2 million a year.
It's all tax money, okay? So
Thank you for
very
paying your
much.
taxes.
Okay, we worked very hard for you during the recent shutdown. We were all trying to find ways to stay at work rather than be furloughed.
Our people were not asking, why aren't I going to get paid? They were saying, why can't I work even though I won't be paid? So they do work hard for you.
So we use tools and concepts from genetics, molecular biology, statistics, mathematics, computer science to study diseases that run in families. So think about your family, think about what your grandparents had in terms of disorders or what they died of, or your cousins, okay, or your parents, okay? There tend to be threads. There are things like prostate cancer, things like breast cancer, things like cardiovascular disease. And what we do is we use family history and we use markers from blood taken from these individuals and statistics, okay, and mathematics to try and find genes that are actually responsible for these disorders. And we've been pretty good at it, pretty lucky so far.
So I mostly deal with what are called qualitative traits, so things like you're affected with a disease, and he mostly deals with quantitative traits, things you can measure, but we have some overlap. I study a lot of cancers, so the cancers I'm most interested in are lung cancer and prostate cancer. I'm also very interested in eye disease, cleft lip and palate, and autism. Those are sort of my major interests at the moment.
And I work mostly in the area of cardiovascular disease, psychiatric disease, response to drugs, pharmacogenetics to some extent, scoliosis, and we're in the process of doing a very large medical sequencing project called ClinSeq, which has gotten a lot of press, and it's basically sequencing all the genes that are thought to relate to the development of atherosclerosis. So, what did we learn when we were here? After cramming years of knowledge into your head, it's really quite sobering to realize that in a few years of time, all of this information will be either obsolete or have to be reinterpreted. What I think you gain through a liberal arts education is not just a bunch of facts. You can get that in a lot of places, a lot of theories, a lot of commonly accepted wisdom, but it's the ability to learn how to do things yourself, how to learn things all by yourself. So if somebody says, you need to go out and learn how to program in R, you can do it. You don't have to go find somebody to teach you how to do it. You can do it. So you learn how to learn. And in truth, science is not really about a bunch of facts, okay? It's really about a way of thinking, okay? It's really a method of thinking about things.
Right. So when we graduated, there was no such thing as the Human Genome Project. There was no such thing as genetic epidemiology, which is sort of the field we're in. Medical genetics was really just in its infancy. In our research, where we're trying to find the location of disease genes on the chromosomes, identify those genes, figure out what they do, we use tools called genetic markers, and basically they're just places on the DNA where we can genotype you in a lab, figure out what version of the DNA you have, and use those as mile markers along the chromosomes, just like you've got mile markers on a highway to tell you where you are. Well, when we graduated from graduate school, not even from college, there were about 39 markers like that in the entire human genome.
So think about the United States, okay, with 39 mile markers, okay, it's 3,000 miles.
If you're driving to California, you're going to get lost. You're not going to know where you are. So, when we moved along since then, technology has changed. The ability to do these things has gotten so much better. Now we have millions, and as Alec likes to say, soon to have billions of these little mile markers along the human DNA. And these changes in the tools have meant we've had to learn how to deal with all those changes, but it's been very exciting and it lets us do new things. In fact, when we were in graduate school and just leaving graduate school, because there were only 39 markers, people were saying we shouldn't train any more of these mathematical geneticists. There's not going to be any jobs for them. There's just not enough data for them to analyze. So training programs were not training very many people with our skills. Well, it was a mistake because, of course, the lab guys went crazy. Now there's millions of markers, and there are not enough people like us. So if any of you like biology and math, think about going into this field. Good job security.
Call us.
Your turn. Oh, no, sorry. There's another bit for me. So, as you've heard several times, in science, as in most fields, the jobs that you will have 20 or 30 years from now is probably not been invented yet. It will probably be very different than anything you envision yourself doing because you're going to have to adapt to our rapidly changing world. And what you learned here will let you lead effectively in that kind of a changing career. Now it's your turn.
All right, so the next thing is sort of character building exercises. These are things in life that are euphemistically referred to as building character, and these are basically things that, in the federal government, the determination is difficult and challenging. We've actually gotten a couple of awards for difficult and challenging problems, and it actually means it's really a pain in the you-know-what. Okay? Typically, these are things that you really don't want to do, okay, but you have to, okay? And getting a liberal arts education prepares you for this. Being compelled, to have a broad liberal arts education meant that you had to apply yourself to learn some stuff that maybe you really didn't care about, okay, in the nicest possible way. Things that you really had absolutely no interest in. And sometimes you actually found that it was interesting, even though you didn't think it was going to be. And even if it wasn't, you did it, and it was a character building experience. So the next thing is creativity, okay? What else did we learn? Creativity. What is tremendously important in science and probably most other fields, I suspect, is the ability to find creative solutions to problems. Okay, this is what getting a PhD is all about, okay? Finding how to solve problems. Not just to be technically competent, but to be innovative. In fact, right now, if you apply for a grant from the National Institutes of Health, one of the main criteria to determine whether or not you get funded is innovation. So you can do something, it can be technically correct, okay, but it has to be novel, it has to be new. Okay, and it's hard to do new stuff. It's hard. It really is. So there's a lot of art in science. Okay, so this goes back to the liberal arts and sciences, or is it the liberal arts versus science? There's a lot of art in science. Okay, it's not just facts. Okay, it's creative problem solving, and creativity is where the art is. Okay.
So another part of a liberal arts education is that you're expected to be good at communicating. You've got to take all those English classes. You have to write all those term papers. Well, the reason for that is in most careers, communication is really important. I loved what you said about you could talk to the engineers, to the marketers, and the top executives. And this is critical. If in science, as in anything else, you have to be able to present what you know and what you found out. What good is making the most important scientific discovery in the world if you can't tell anybody about it? You have to be able to write and speak clearly, succinctly, and to many different levels so that you can explain what you're doing to anyone.
So, being able to learn independently, take on character building experiences, to find creative solutions to problems that arise, and be able to communicate effectively, believe it or not, okay, at some point in time, these are skills that people will pay you to do, okay? Really, maybe not right now, okay, maybe not in this economy, but at some point in time, these are highly valued skills.
And then another important part of a liberal arts education, particularly in a relatively small school like this, is making friends and developing a support network. Over the years, the friends you make here, the family that helped you get here, they will all contribute to your success in many different ways. They'll give you advice, whether you want it or not. They will also introduce you to others who will be important to you socially or professionally. They'll listen to you complain when you need to. They'll celebrate with you during the good times. But what's interesting as a scientist is there is a whole field of science that has shown the importance to ongoing good health of strong social support networks. The closeness of the community at a school like this is something that will stand you in good stead in the future, and it'll help you make those connections that are important not just for your social life and your career, but for your long-time health. So for both of us, a liberal arts education led to, as you've heard, to successful and really actually pretty independent careers. We don't really work together very much. We work on fairly different things. But also our third career, which is the kids. Also the friends that we still highly value from college, and the ability to pursue outside activities that are our passions and keep us as well-rounded people.
Some of which came from character building experiences.
Some came from character building experiences, that's true.
So it's essential for both of us every day to be able to learn how to do new things. And for all of you, I would say, to be willing to take on tasks that don't maybe have your highest personal priority, to be creative, most importantly, to be creative in problem solving, and to be able to communicate effectively. Okay, and that's what we do for our kids. Okay, believe it or not, we do it in our careers too. So thank you very much.
We're going to do some creative problem solving now because we're a little bit behind schedule. But what we would like to do is hopefully to get some people to share maybe what they talked about or their unique experiences with the liberal arts or how the liberal arts made a difference for them. If you were at that wonderful concert last night, you know, it ended on a spectacular note with the gospel music and everybody was up there and doing this stuff. Well, we're going to continue now with the testimonials. So we have a mic in the back here if you want to come up. We'd certainly love to hear from students and faculty. So, and we're not leaving until you get up and say something. So.
Hello, my name is Sarah Reeves. Most of you might know me as Belle. Thank you. I think the liberal arts education is fantastic. I'm a senior this year, and the liberal arts education has actually prepared me to move on to my master's program, which I will be going to University of Edinburgh in Scotland next fall. And I feel like no matter what, having a liberal arts education behind me has prepared me for anything that the world has to throw at me. I will be studying art history, but I feel like I am prepared to start any kind of career that anyone can offer me. And the confidence that I have from my liberal arts education at McDaniel is just all inspiring. So, thank you.
I'll share one little story that was reminded to me by our speakers. Dr. Kirshner was one of my favorite professors. I think it was their favorite professor. And she introduced me to a liberal arts in the form of pointing out to me that she had students that were certainly better in coming up with better answers than I was. I was not a particularly brilliant student. Fortunately, only Jim Leitner knows where our grade records are, so, but she did point out to me the next important step, and that was I had better questions than most of her students. And I started to appreciate the fact that that was very important. And as I've gone through my career, and I hold experience here on the Hill very high in my development, the realization that good questions were as important, if not more important, than the answers brought home to me what a liberal education really is. So for the young people, I would, if you're having difficulties with the answer, keep in mind, good questions may get you through. It's gotten me through. Thank you.
Well, you saw me in the video, but I'm not here to speak for myself. My daughter actually graduated in college, and she's currently at Emerson College in Boston studying creative writing. And she's very active on Twitter, sometimes in the middle of her classes. But I wanted to share one of her tweets with you that actually did come in the middle of a class. She was complaining about some of her fellow students in the class. And she was saying that they were complaining about the fact that this is a creative writing class. Why did they have to read literature in the course? And her tweet was, what's the matter with these people from these big universities? Didn't they make them read? And I just thought I'd share that.
So I was surprised to come here tonight. There's a lot of people here know me, so I didn't want to embarrass anybody, like Dr. Moore. Let's see, so my name is John Mattering. I'm in my senior year. And when I first came here, I studied physics. And I decided after that first year it was quite easy when it became positive to publish a paper. So I went to mathematics. And that was a humbling experience because I think I failed all those courses. And when I came here, very ambitious, and I wanted to do math and science, and that's everything that my family had done, my grandparents, mathematicians, physicists. And it was actually both Peter Bradley and Mohammed Asa who changed my mind about what the liberal arts could do to me. Dr. Asa taught me. Dr. Asa taught me German language and culture. My father's family comes from Germany. And so now I'm a heritage speaker, as it were. I lived there. I had the opportunity to do that, which is a great thing for me. Dr. Bradley, I went to his philosophy of science class And I remember telling him in an email to see if this is the right course for me, you know, I'm interested in math and science. And he said, oh yeah, come to here and this will change your mind about all of it and it'll make you hate science. No, but from that I still major in mathematics and do all the you know, rational stuff. And then I also have a great penchant for global languages and philosophy and all sorts of forms of logic, rational, empiricism. I've become a much more well-rounded student than I thought I would, considering I was one of the students my freshman year trying to make my computer science classes count as a language requirement, not knowing that there had been a fight the year before about that. So I was very popular. So that's my testimonial.
My name is Maggie Powell. I'm a senior here, and I'm a double major in theater and psychology. And I just wanted to share my quick thoughts on something that the Wilsons actually touched on a little bit about what they value about their liberal arts education, which is that it gives you the opportunity to explore the things that you're passionate about, and you don't have to focus on just one passion. And that's something that was certainly true for me in my time here, and I found ways to kind of combine my passions and intertwine them. I came in knowing that I was interested in being a part of theater and being involved in that department. And I spent a really great freshman year taking acting classes and being a part of different shows and things like that. But I quickly came to realize that I wanted to do something a little bit more with it, that I didn't see my name in lights or necessarily want to be the next Broadway star. What I wanted to do was be able to help people, and that's how I kind of stumbled into the field of drama therapy and being able to use embodied theater techniques to work with different people. And I've spent this year working with a group of kids on the autism spectrum and teaching them to act and helping them better understand how to interact with other people in a creative way. And that's just been so incredibly rewarding. And it's been the opportunities that I've had here to combine my passions, to try out different things, and to explore the way that my education interconnects with things that you wouldn't necessarily expect. That's been the real gift of the liberal arts education for me.
Hi, I'm Sarah Miller. I'm a psychology and English double major with double minors in writing and cognitive science because I'm a first generation college student. And so when you're a first generation college student, you feel like you have to take courses in everything that your parents never got to take courses in, which is why I'm glad that there's the liberal arts, because I feel like McDaniel has embraced my brand of crazy and willing to take every class that I possibly can without literally losing my mind. So I think my favorite thing about McDaniel is that you meet so many great people in so many different departments, and everyone really is passionate about what they're passionate, what they're doing, and it makes me more passionate about psychology and writing, and I have no idea what that's going to mean for grad school. But at the same time, I know I can get there because I've seen so many people here get there from so many different backgrounds, and I just think the liberal arts teaches you how to talk to people, and how to relate to people, communicate with people, and I think with Twitter and Facebook, that's probably a good thing.
Hi everybody, I'm Sean. I'm a poli-sci major with minors in Spanish and American history. And I just wanted to share, I guess I had this thought last week. I was sitting with my roommates, and I'm going to embarrass one of them. Ben Sapp is over here. Hi. And we're two political science majors, a math, physics double major, and a chemistry major. And we're sitting watching a game of Jeopardy. And it really struck me when all four of us can answer a lot of these questions that, I guess what I realized was I've become a lot more well-rounded than I ever thought I would be, thanks to McDaniel. And there's a phrase that a jack of all trades is a master of none, but I disagree. I think that having a more well-rounded breadth of knowledge really, augments your possibilities in life. Right now I'm taking a course with Dr. Rhodes about neuropsychology. I had no idea what a selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor was before I started. Yeah, exactly. I'm tomorrow. But at the end of the day, I really can't repay what McDaniel's given me in terms of making me into the person who I've wanted to be, giving me the opportunity to learn new things each and every day, and making me into just a more well-rounded individual.
Hello, my name is Sunita. I am an environmental policy and international studies major. And one thing that I noticed was that everyone's talking about the academics and how well-rounded it is, but one thing I was thinking was that going to a small liberal arts college has really given me the opportunity, and most of the people I know, to really develop leadership skills. And so I've had the opportunity to create my own club and be president of another one, and I'm involved in a lot of different organizations. Basically everyone I live with is either like president or treasurer or something of some organization or club on campus. And I think that going to a college like McDaniel really gives you the opportunity to develop that leadership.
All right, just looking at the time, we'd love to go on and let more of you have your say. We hope that this evening can sort of spark additional conversation on campus as we move forward. We don't have to come together at an event like this to have this kind of conversation, I hope. But we wanted to spend just a few minutes now giving the microphone over to our guest of honor, Dr. Roger Casey, who'd like to offer a few comments on this evening. Roger?
I just want to keep doing this. I suddenly had a great idea for an inauguration that I've never seen before, which would be to break up the delegates into small groups and have them discuss, how their liberal arts education changed their lives, and then report back. I'm just picturing all of that butcher paper all around the paper. But what a marvelous, marvelous evening listening to people talk about how this place and how their liberal arts education, wherever it was received, changed their lives. I've also gotten a great new idea for our slogan, Embrace Your Crazy, which I think that would be a really good one too. I think it was William Gibson who said that the future is already here, it's just unevenly distributed. The thing that I know after having spent 9 months here is that we got a lot of the distribution. We have a remarkable faculty and remarkable student body here in terms of absolutely trying to embrace their education at its fullest. I resonate with that notion of what it's like to be a first-generation college student. You don't want to lose any opportunity to possibly get something that was never an opportunity for your predecessors. But as Henry James said, be one on whom nothing is lost. And I heard that very much in the conversations that our speakers and our students and faculty sharing their experiences in the liberal arts had to say tonight. I've talked a lot in my own experience about being a first-generation college student, but actually I had a different idea tonight in terms of thinking about, as Peter and the Wilsons talked about, how they were there on the frontier of something before it ever really happened. They were there, and their liberal arts education gave them that opportunity. And first-generation learning is what the idea that sort of came into my mind. It's not a description of us as those people, but we're getting tools and we're getting the ability here, I think, to really go out and effectively engage and work in fields that haven't even been invented yet. I just had the opportunity last week to spend 2.5 days at Apple headquarters out in San Jose, California, and one of the speakers we heard out there said, in terms of the way that the digital revolution is changing our lives, it used to be about every 18 years a major technological invention came along and radically changed the way people process information and process the world that they live in. And our speaker was able to show us now that's 18 months. 18 months. We can't possibly teach you those things here at this college, but what it's so exciting to see is that you, even as students here, recognize the fact that what you are getting are critical approaches, methodologies, disciplines that will enable you to effectively deal with whatever that change is. I don't think I knew that when I was an undergraduate. So I think you have remarkable maturity because, it's 18 months now and, the whole world is changing for you as opposed to my world. I'm also really glad to know that the PlayStation 2 and the Muppet 3D movie are an important part of educational transformation too, because, for me, it's the opportunity to really learn and critically apply my skills to popular culture, which has been the thing that I've spent my entire career doing. And certainly when I was in college and people looked at me, they said, you can't read that stuff. You have to read other things that, the big books of literature. And now I've really learned how I could take those tools and I can talk about things like television in a critical way and popular culture. And again, this reinvention process, we're like Madonna, we keep reinventing ourselves over and over again in a new form, in a new way. And that's the thing I think that liberal arts gives us absolutely the most. So I want to also take this opportunity to say, and a special thanks to Paul and Sarah and to all the people who have given of their time and energy to really put this evening's panel together. And in fact, if all of those folks who've been working on this, if you could stand up a minute, I think we want to recognize you with a round of applause for all of your work. So please. So I look forward to however many different generations of new worlds that I'll have a chance to experience with you here as your president. And I can certainly say that it hasn't taken very long for this college to change my life and change my world. And I want to say thank you to everyone here for making that a part of my experience. I certainly look forward to making it an even greater place in the future with you by my side and me behind you. So thank you so much.
But we do want to recognize some individual here. Dr. James Leitner, head of the inaugural steering committee that just has done so much and is continuing to do more. And he'll look forward to a rest after this is over. Okay. Dr. Muhammad Isa, who headed the thematic events subcommittee that Sarah and I were on. Sarah and I worked with some other people, Jake Friedman, Mary Lynn Durham, and Tom Faulkner and his office were tremendous help here. Joyce Muller for help with the programs and the publicity. David Arnold, who also contributed with Dr. Isa to the film that you saw. And lastly, Sunita Patik, who not only got up and talked, but she was playing the violin for you when you came in. So anyway, thank you all for coming, and good night.